All right. Hey, everybody. My name's Colin. I'm here from Mike's Camera in Boulder, Colorado. We're really excited to have Mark Cruz here, technical specialist from Nikon, and we're going to be talking about the new Z6 II, new Z7 II, and Z5 that have all come out pretty recently. Mark, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Colin.
So, Mark, if you could tell us a little bit about the new Z6 II and the Z7 II. They're getting a lot of attention. What, in your opinion, are the top 5 upgrades that people should be looking at?
Yeah, sure. I'll just tell you about the fact that we announced this last week. They're going to be out in the next couple of months. So this is the second generation of the Z6 and Z7. We came out with those cameras a couple of years ago where we had 2 cameras and 3 lenses in our Z system. Now we have 6 cameras and 16 lenses and 2 teleconverters. This is really the second generation of the Z6 and Z7. And the major improvements are things that the customers have been asking for that are hardware upgrades. We've addressed some things through software and firmware upgrades in the past. Now we really need to get into the hardware upgrades. So what we've done is we've put dual memory card slots in here. So both CF Express and SD cards. You'll see that we have finally communication with a functional vertical battery grip that you can control shutter speed and aperture with, as well as have 2 batteries, as well as a hot swappable battery at the front, and as well as a hardware upgrade for the processors. So we now have dual X-speed processors, as well as a 4K 60 video and improved eye autofocus. I would say those are the top 5 things that we've improved with both the Z6 II and the Z7 II.
Awesome. Wow. I mean, those are a lot of really big upgrades there, and definitely some stuff that's a big change from the previous cameras. I know a lot of people have been asking about those dual card slots. That's a huge upgrade for professionals. So, Mark, I'm personally not a Nikon shooter, but I have shot the Z7 once and I loved it. Can you talk about what the benefits of the Z system are and why someone should consider switching who's not a Nikon user and trying out these new cameras?
Well, for us, it all comes down to the mount. There's an abundant amount of light that we can get through the mount, and the mount redesign from our F mount and conventional DSLR mounts offers a wider diameter and a shorter flange distance. Tech talk aside, basically what that gives our engineers is the ability to create optics that we've never had before. Simply edge-to-edge sharpness, especially on the wide-angle lenses, you're going to see the most amount of difference, but also shooting at wide-open apertures, which we've never been able to do before at maximum resolution. Typically, our lenses need to be stopped down a couple of stops to realize maximum resolution. Because we've redesigned the mount, subsequently our optics are redesigned, and we can actually shoot wide-open apertures and get maximum resolution, taking advantage of our 45 megapixels on the Z7 and Z7 II, and as well as the 24.5 megapixels on the Z6 and Z6 II. So for you, my friend, I think one of the compelling reasons to get into the Nikon system is our commitment to imaging, the fact that we are over a 100-year-old company, the fact that in 2-year time frame, we were able to do a rapid expansion of a system that paid particular attention to high-end optics and everything in between, from the wide-angle prime, and now we have the fulfillment of the 2.8 trinity of lenses. It's a great professional and advanced viable system for people that are doing this, even from an enthusiast range to a beginner to a high-end portrait shooter or wedding photographer. You have everything you need here, and it gives you the best optics, because in the industry right now, with this Z mount, it is actually the biggest mount on the market for full frame.
Wow, I mean, that definitely is a selling point. I know you guys have had some really exciting new optics coming out, especially like the new 14 to 24 that was just announced. And I guess we'll touch on that in a few minutes. But so if we were to compare,
8 more to come. Sorry, I just didn't interrupt there, but we have 8 more lenses in next year to come. We've also announced 3 more in 2022, an 85, 400, and the 600. So we're rapidly expanding this system.
Wow, that is definitely rapid. I mean, it's always difficult when a new ecosystem of camera and lenses come out, because you're hesitant to buy into it without knowing what lenses are coming. So it's great that you guys have so many things on the horizon for Z shooters. Mark, if we were to compare one of your current flagship cameras like a D850 and your F-mount 24-70 VR with the new Z7 II and the Z-mount 24-70 f2.8, can you talk about how they compare, and would there be enough benefits for a customer to move from their D850 to the new Z7 II?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially because the D850 is regarded by many as our perfect DSLR. So if someone already has that and a 24-70, which is kind of like our flagship do-everything lens, What compelling reasons do they have to go to a Z7 II or a 24 with a 24-70? I'll tell you maybe three off the top of my head. Number one, optical performance. So like I said, with the new mount, we can get resolution to the extreme edges, really, really sharp, shot at wide open apertures, and that's something we can only do with this mount. Number two, it's the EVF experience. So what you see is what you get, and the EVF in our Z cameras is highly regarded as one of the best in the industry, also because we have Nikon optics in front of there. So it gives you the ability to see your exposure in real time before you actually take the picture. It'll probably make you a more efficient photographer in that regard. Number three, I would say, is the ability to have stabilization in the camera. So with your D850, if your lens doesn't have stabilization like the 24-70 VR, maybe you might have the original 24-70, or if you might have some prime lenses, you really have to up your shutter speed and subsequently up your ISO. With a Z camera, you can actually keep your ISOs lower because of the built-in stabilization. That's not only 5 stops across practically all of our lenses, but also 5 axis. So in terms of stability, both for stills as well as hand holding in video, that is a major advantage when going over to the Z system, among other things like the silent shutter if you really want to turn it off, and the size and weight reduction. So those are the things, the compelling reasons I would say people that are shooting a D850 may start looking over now at the Z7 II as giving them an advantage, especially now because we have the vertical battery grip and the dual card slots, that some people said, I would consider the Z7 if it just had those two features. Now we have those features built in, as well as a bigger buffer to mimic sort of the DSLR experience.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely a lot of upgrades. Like you said, especially if you're shooting lenses that don't have built-in vibration reduction and things like that. That's a pretty big step up for people. Can you talk a little bit about the autofocus upgrades in the Z7 II coming from the original Z7?
Yeah, sure. The autofocus upgrades is another reason when you look at mirrorless, it makes a lot of sense over DSLR because of the coverage of the frame. 90% of the frame, typically on the D850, even though it's one of our biggest autofocusing modules, it's clustered to the center of the frame. It doesn't really give you freedom of extreme composition right to the edges. You will have that with the Z7 II, covering 90% of the frame over 493 autofocus points. What we've done differently now in the Z6 II and the Z7 II is that we've improved eye detect. So in lenses like what I'm using right now to shoot this, I'm using the 50mm 1.2. We have eye detect both in stills as well as video. As well, we've improved the implementation of it because we've added it to an option called wide area AF. In the first generation of our cameras, it was only available in auto area AF, meaning to say it would search for eyes in the entire frame. If you had multiple people in the picture, it might pick other people's eyes. And now you can relegate it to a red box that you can drag around the frame and only look for eyes in that quadrant. So you can apply that both for stills as well as video. So those are the major improvements when it comes to autofocus on these new generation 2 cameras.
Wow, that's awesome. And I know you were also talking about those dual processors earlier, kind of building up the buffer so it's more like the DSLR experience. Can you talk a little bit about the benefits of that?
The major benefits are 2. Number 1, faster frame rates, and number 2, a bigger buffer. And when I say bigger buffer, I'm talking about more than triple than generation 1. For the Z6, we can get 3.5 times the buffer. I think we can shoot 124 raw files before exhausting the buffer, 77 with the 45.7 megapixels of the Z7 II. So that is a huge improvement over our previous cameras. This is also realized with the CF Express cards, which we're writing about 1700 megabytes per second. So we can realize the full potential of those cards with the dual X-speed processors that give us faster frame rates and bigger buffers. So people that are shooting Z6 II can now achieve frame rates as high as 14 frames per second. That was only previously achieved with our D6, which was our flagship DSLR camera. Now with the Z7 II, which is essentially a medium format resolution, we can achieve frame rates up to 10 frames per second. So those are the major advantages of the dual X-speed processor.
Wow, that's a huge advantage for anyone who's doing, wildlife or sports or event photography, anything where you need that really fast, high speed shutter, and being able to not have to worry about filling up your buffer. That's definitely a huge benefit I'm also seeing some kind of upgrades here on the stats that look like they might be geared a little towards night photography. I saw the exposure time has been up to 90 seconds, and now you can do USB charging while the camera is shooting. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is that possibly geared towards night photography? And what's the direction there?
Yeah, first of all, low light shooting has been improved in these. We can focus in about half the amount of light on both of the Z6 II and the Z7 II. There's I don't want to get too technical, but there's negative 4.5 EV rating on the Z6 II and negative 3 EV on the Z7 II, which is basically working in half the amount of light of their previous model. So you can focus in less light is what I'm saying. But in regards to what you were saying about the 900 seconds, this is something that we introduced with the D810A. That was kind of our astrophotography camera. Basically, it allows you to shoot at shutter speeds as long as 15 minutes and several other shutter speeds in between 30 seconds and 15 minutes. For astrophotography, that's important. But also, I mean, we have options to allow that to become literal, such as the USB power delivery in the camera, then where we can use things like an anchor power source to power the camera for these long extended periods of time. So definitely that's something that we want to give our customers the option to use. And it's important if you're dealing with astrophotography and these type of long exposures.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. I'm sure anyone who's ever done a very long exposure and left their camera out shooting the stars only to come back and find it dead would be very excited by the opportunity to do something like that and being able to power their camera with a separate power brick like that. That's pretty huge.
Yeah, and the great part about it is, it doesn't even drain the batteries. If you're using a USB-C cable, it bypasses that. You can use specifically the power source. Even if you have it plugged in, you can go for an indefinite period of time, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm actually powering the camera through a USB, and a lot of people are using their cameras now for webcam use, streaming, et cetera, et cetera. We also have a webcam utility right now that's free, and you can attach several of our DSLR as well as our Z cameras for purposes such as these.
Oh, that's awesome. Which camera are you using right now?
Right now, to film, I'm using a Z6. So I just want to mention that the Z6 and Z7 don't actually go away from our lineup. We'll have the Z50, Z5, Z6, Z7, as well as the Z6 II and Z7 II in our lineup. So we have everything covered from sub $1,000 to $3,000. I probably have about 13 different SKUs in there. So people can really have options in terms of which Z camera fits their budget, fits their creative needs.
Awesome. Now, we're kind of running out of time here, but I do want to check in with you about some of these new lenses. I saw there's Nikon recently started shipping the 70 to 200 Z series, which has got some great reviews, and soon you got the 14 to 24 f2.8. Can you tell me a little bit about that 14 to 24 lens and how Nikon was able to scale the size down while still including a screw-in filter on the front? That's pretty huge.
Yeah, well, it all has to do with the mount. So pretty soon we're going to have a video on our site showing exactly how we did it with this particular lens, because that was the major problem with the 14 to 24. It had that bubble in the front, so you had to buy third-party adapters for filters. And now it's basically a flat front, and we ship it with an optional hood that comes with 112. An included hood that comes with a 112 millimeter filter option, so we can screw on polarizing filters, neutral density filters, even protective filters like neutral color filters. And this will allow you to do that right out of the box. So we've been able to do that specifically because of the mount. We've been able to recess some of the lenses, and we use something called a dual-sided aspherical element, which is a very exclusive type of element that we use in this lens to achieve that flat front. We did not have that in the original version of the 14 to 24. This essentially consolidates two lens elements into one by having dual-sided aspherical element in here. That's basically the way we did it.
Very cool. I think it's super exciting for anyone who's doing, especially landscape photography, something where you might be working with a lot of neutral density or polarizing filters. It's so great to be able to have that option to use them on the lens without all kinds of third-party adapters. It's really exciting.
But I'll tell you one thing, the most important thing about it, I think it's so light. The fact that you can actually carry it around in your backpack now, I think is remarkable, the weight savings.
That is definitely awesome. So Mark, I also just wanted to talk to everyone before we wrap up here about These, we got a lot of specials going into the holiday season. We got a pre-order special for the Z7 II and the Z6 II with Hoodman SD cards. So I think I have the details here. If you buy the camera with you get a free SD card with the Z6, Z7, and if you buy the camera with a card with the Z6 II and the Z7 II, you get a free card reader. So that's an $85 savings. That's pretty cool opportunity for people. And then we also have this opportunity to try out the Z5, the rental program, try before you buy. So basically you can rent from us a Z5 camera for just $49, which is usually the normal day rental price, and get it for a whole week. And if you like the camera, we'll apply that credit towards the purchase of the camera. So that's an exciting opportunity for people to try out.
Definitely, and it's a great bridge because the Z5 mimics a lot of features that people would see in a Z6. So if they're trying to decide, it's great.
Yeah, and then the other exciting thing that I guess we have coming up is we have this Nikon Weekend happening. It's going to be November 7th and 8th, where we basically have free classes going on all day. You don't have to be a Nikon shooter to be there. So that's another opportunity to learn a little bit more from the experts at Nikon like you. It's so great to have you here and just letting people know that there are more opportunities coming up soon, and this is something that we try to do as often as possible. So yeah, that's about it. Mark, thank you so much for being here with us and chatting with us. It was great to hear about some of the exciting new opportunities for Nikon shooters with the Z7 II, the Z6 II, and this whole ecosystem of Z cameras and lenses that you guys are building up that are just so fantastic.
Hey, it's rapidly expanding. We have 16 lenses now. We're going to have 24 by next year, and we're going to have more after that. So stay tuned. It's an exciting time for Nikon. Rapid expansion and more pro cameras and pro lenses as of right now. So we're looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much for your time. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.